Aloha and welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with your host, me, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have out of this world conversations with extraordinary people. And today I am so excited to have Jason Donaldson on. He actually lives here on the Big Island of Hawaii, but we've never met in person. So this is going to be really fun to get to know him and have a new tribe member. So before I bring him on and tell you all about him, just a few announcements. First one is that I have that free 20-minute meditation to meet your galactic family and guides on my website. So if you haven't done that meditation yet, definitely grab that at mysticmanta.com. It's just right at the top of the website. Also, I have my galactic retreat coming up September 14th to the 17th here on the Big Island in Waikoloa Village. So whether you're local, I have a package for that, or if you're flying in from outside of the Big Island, then I have packages for that as well. So check that out. Also, if you are visiting here on the Big Island, come see me on one of my Big Island UFO tours and witness the night sky in a whole new way. Last night we had a tour. It was very windy. Right now we have the trade winds, but clear skies and non-stop activity. It was crazy. So also currently for the next few months, I'm teaching different galactic sessions focusing on different galactic groups. So we have 12 groups total that we're focusing on. Last week were the Arcturians. This week we're focusing on the Sirians. Next week are the Pleiadians. And so check out my website for more details on that. And it will be meditative journey. I will also be channeling, and last week was intense, but really amazing. So check that out. That's also on mysticmanta.com, and the UFO tours, BigIslandUFOtours.com. So now, without further ado, I'm going to bring on Jason. Hi, Jason.
Hi.
I love your background, and it fits right in with my Syrian theme for this week. But let me tell people a little bit about you, because you have a really interesting background. Jason Donaldson has a BA in psychology from University of Hawaii at Hilo, a master's in arts in marriage and family therapy from NCU, is a certified Sekhem energy practitioner and spirit guidance mentor. Jason has an extremely varied background in many healing modalities and much esoteric studies such as ascension mechanics, quantum physics, nutrition, Tai Chi, Qigong, tarot, shadow work, energy signature reading, etheric surgery, implant removal, meditation, breathwork, soul retrieval, and archetypes. He has been trained in the 3 principles approach to mental health, facilitated various groups, workshops, and rite of passage ceremonies for over 10 years. Welcome, Jason. That is quite a lot of modalities that you do. So
yeah, there's a couple I omitted too, and it's a lot. It was all in the effort to like fix myself and heal myself and
okay.
I felt like I was broken my whole life, and so it was like, oh, this thing's gonna help me, and now this thing, and I need to learn that, and I'm gonna work with these people in this group. And
I love it. Well, let's talk about how you grew up. What kind of spiritual or religious or something else kind of household did you grow up in, so that we know like why you needed to fix yourself?
I was pretty blessed based on what other people tell me as far as religion, that I didn't really experience a whole lot of it. Like my dad didn't really like church. Like his church was the woods, the mountains. So I spent a lot of time in nature and went to church once in a while, but it was like not enjoyable to me. And it was kind of like scary and like depressing and sad and boring. And I get how it helps people, but for me, it wasn't. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't really like it. And a lot of the stuff that I connected with, it was like considered evil or witchcraft or something. I'm like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, you know? So it was a lot of time in nature, and my dad had more of a Native American approach to like, spirit and our connection with nature and the animals and like the great spirit and stuff. So I was pretty blessed in that way.
Yeah.
The same with my mom. She didn't really push much religion on us or anything.
Okay. Well, so then were there things in your childhood or your teenage years that led to you being on this journey of trying to heal?
Yeah, well, it runs in my family. There's this sensitivity to energy, and often it's kind of darker stuff. And like what people would say is like demons and ghosts and things that have like a negative connotation to it. And often that's just like the fear of something unknown happening, and it brings this insecurity. And it's like, oh no, and even when our guides show up, sometimes that happens. For me, it was like my guides would show up. I'm like, oh my God, what is that? It's
Yeah.
scary. I don't like it. And, turn it into a fear thing. And then they'd leave, of course. But a lot of that runs in my family. And so there's already that sensitivity and that awareness of it, but not always a deep understanding of what it is and why it's happening, and the fact that there is, more benevolent aspects of this. But it often shows up in kind of a negative way, at least for me and some of my other family members. But we also have visitation from our ancestors after they die, which is actually quite common in a lot of the research you'll see, and which I'm sure you're aware of, that when someone dies, they usually show up like in a dream or standing at the foot of the bed, or some way they reach out like, hey, I'm cool, I'm all right, I'm still around, it's okay.
Yeah.
And so there was that sensitivity to that, and a lot of confusion around it for me, and also like a very busy, active mind, like my mom's side of the family. So that was like my dad's side, and my mom's side is more like Atlantean geniuses. So they got this really strong intellect, and they're very much like um, connected to that, even though they don't know it. It's not much talk about aliens, although they've seen ships and stuff. Like a couple of my mom's family members, had seen like ships, like triangle ships and stuff.
Okay.
And so with that comes this really active mind and a lot of thoughts and a lot of things that come and go, and a lot of picking up of the energies around me. And when I was a kid, it was really confusing because I would have these thoughts and they'd be really upsetting. And I'd be like, oh, what's wrong with me? Why would I think that? And I would think it was mine, and I'd take it on as mine. When really it was just feeling the energy or feeling something that was in the environment. And that was really difficult. And what was a blessing is that as I got older, I got to work with youth here in Hawaii, and I was helping, you know, at risk youth, which were really just kids that, dad wasn't around, or dad was in jail, or they had, they were impoverished or had other challenges. And we got to work with them as a group with mentors from the community. And there'd be some of the boys that were really sensitive and similar to me, and I'd be able to connect with them and let them know, like, hey, yes, that stuff's real, and your thoughts are not you. It's just it's just the thought. You don't have to take it on. And the power of the group setting really would solidify that for everybody too, that just struggled with these belief systems, that these core negative beliefs that I'm not good enough, or I'm unlovable, or nobody likes me. And you can have a whole room of people say, man, I like you, you're awesome, and when 3 people or 5 people say that, it's much more powerful than just one. So it was really a blessing to get to like help my child self with what I struggled with as a youth, and all that sensitivity, like the Arcturian energy we were talking about, where it's like this exposed nerve in the environment, and feeling and vibrating with everything, and it's like, oh my God. And if the mind grabs onto it, it's like, that's me, oh no. And when really it's like, okay, breathe, feel it, be present, and then it becomes fun sometimes.
So then, getting your BA in psychology, right? So did you already know when you were going to college that this was the kind of work that you wanted to do? Or did it come later where you're like, okay, now I need to do more of the metaphysical side of things?
I was always interested in metaphysics, but it was kind of blocked for me. Like I never really found the information I was looking for. And then in my 20s, I spent a lot of time like drinking and partying and trying to like subdue that nervous system, like a lot of star seeds and indigos do. Like we have that really sensitive nervous system. And so I tried to numb it out. I tried to push it away. And I even was on some level trying to be a sociopath, where I wouldn't feel anything and I could do and have what I wanted, and not really care how it impacts people, which isn't really who I am. I'm a Christic being, but as a adolescent and a young adult, that's what was presented to me in movies and role models. And I was like, oh, I need to be this tough, strong man that can never cries, doesn't show emotion, never gets nervous. that's what I want to be, because they get the girl, they get the money, they get all this stuff, right? And yeah, and that wasn't really who I was. And then the drinking and all that kind of led its course. And I had some visitations and things happen to me during that when I was at a lower vibratory state, which actually I get really off. I might be getting a little off topic, but
Okay,
I
no,
have so much to share
what
that
what kind of visitations did you have? Because I think some of our audience members would probably really resonate with your story.
yeah, and this is the thing with demons and stuff, right? Is I have a giant dragon tattooed on my back, because at the height of my like suicidal drinking and just not caring about anything, I woke up in the middle of the night. I still had the light on because I passed out, right? I was laying on my bed and something's like scratching at my back. I'm just like, what the hell? I wake up, I'm yelling, and the thing's still scratching at me, right? And so that was kind of a wake up, like, what am I dancing with? What am I embracing? And I had some dreams too of descending down into this room where all these people were, and it felt very vampiric, and it felt like if I went in there I would kind of get lost. And so I backed out, and then I was back out on the road somewhere, and I saw this light, and I got teleported towards the light. Just so many experiences like that kind of was like, okay, I am needing to change what I'm doing here. And I got the dragon tattooed on my back for protection, and I started working with letting go of the alcohol and things that I used to self-medicate. And ultimately I wound up having to move to Arizona from the Seattle area to just get away from everything. And that's where I started diving into metaphysics, and I found my first teacher. And so I was going to college on and off, community college, for a long time, but I was never really focused. It was just like, oh, that's what I'm going to do. And I had all these ideas, but I was really just partying and having fun and trying to suppress my emotions. I was always working too, but I went to Arizona and I was working a lot there. And then I just focused on reading all the books and started meditating, and went to every psychic I could find to get tarot card readings. I was obsessed with past lives. So I had all these past life regressions and trying to find out who I was based on the past, which isn't really accurate, but it's important. And then I found my metaphysics teacher who taught me tarot cards and all these things. And she was a channeler and a five planet Scorpio that I would just sit with her as she'd do readings too over the phone and just listen. And I had all these questions I had for her. And it was really eye opening for the perspective it gave me, especially a lot of the channeled material in the books I read. It was like just so expanding to get that awareness. And at one point I had to choose the light. Like there's this salient point where, based on what I was doing in the past, I've always been at the light and love, but there was a period where I was trying to suppress that and hide that. And I wasn't always pleasant in the world. I didn't hurt people, but I was verbally like, mean and stuff. And I wasn't really always conscious. And as I was moving away from that and wanting to embrace more of the light, I had to choose that at a salient moment right around the time I was learning about Aleister Crowley and reading about him, because I knew magic was real. And I was like, that guy could do it. So I'm going to read about it. But that also brought up a lot of stuff and a lot of shadow. And I had this point where I was meditating, and I think I'd smoked some weed, and I don't really like using, drugs or substances with spiritual practices or meditation, although, there's a time and place for it here and there. But I'd smoked some weed and I was meditating, and like, I felt like all these demons and stuff pulling me down. And I was just like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. I want the light. I want the light. And I just like chose the light, and then I shot up out of there. And that was like the salient point where I chose the light, because prior to that, my belief system was that the light is weak. It's like guys in ponytails singing, playing the guitar, and it's just really cheesy and kind of wimpy. And that's not the case, because like my teacher, she was pretty badass. She's this Sicilian Scorpio woman that just didn't take any crap from anybody, and she made the light look cool. And I was like, all right, I can hang with this. And then I was there for about 6 years in in Arizona. And then I wound up moving to Hawaii to finish my bachelor's degree, and ultimately kept going and got my master's in marriage and family therapy.
Okay.
But I actually started with the metaphysics first, and worked with a galactic shaman for a while, and I was in an ascension community. I was a mentor in Lisa Renee's community for a number of years. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's a really amazing starseed teacher. Teaches a lot of tools and techniques for commanding space, doing grid work, transiting beings and entities and things. And I learned a lot there. And Hawaii taught me to choose love, choose my heart. And the aloha is real. And
It's real.
that's what Hawaii continues to teach me, and to just let go and embrace what is.
Okay, so I guess, do you have a primary starseed group, or what starseed are you, or what system are you primarily from in your understanding?
I'm more of a wanderer.
Mhm.
People have told me that, and that really resonates, that I went to various systems, but there is definitely Arcturus connection. I work with the Tiru, which is like Sirius and Orion. I do feel like an Orion connection with that. And the galactic shaman I worked with, him and I were in the galactic or the electric wars, which I think was the Orion system. But yeah, a bunch, honestly. And then there's this huge dragon connection for me, and lifetimes working with dragon energy, which is like semi-etheric and all around us. It was more powerful in certain, I don't know if it's dimensions or times or whatever, but it's like, it's very real.
Oh, it is. I dragons myself. So that's one thing that when Patty first connected us, she was like, "You two need to meet," and then I was seeing some of your Facebook posts about dragons and all of that, and I'm like, "Yep, okay, you're one of my tribe."
Yeah, I feel that. I love the work you're doing. I want to check out one of your tours too. That sounds great.
Definitely need to come on that. Well, so you are a certified Sekhem energy practitioner. And when I saw that, when I first met you, I had never heard of that. So I'm sure there's a lot of the audience that doesn't know what that is either. So can you explain what that kind of work is?
Yeah, I didn't know what it was either. I just, one day, a couple of years ago, Anubis showed up. I'd get a sense of beings and energy around me, and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And he kept showing up. I got a couple of massages from a friend, and he's like, Anubis showed up today and gave you this message. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I've been feeling him. And so I started moving towards embracing that lifetime in Egypt I had, which was kind of painful because not a lot of people know that Egypt, there was a lot of like black magic and a lot of stuff that was happening there that wasn't always pleasant. And before, before the fall, before the forgetting, which we all wanted, it was more, benevolent and harmonious. But there was a period where, we were really powerful and we kind of got overwhelmed with that. And, and that was fun too, until it wasn't. But so Sekhem is working with the Egyptian gods, the Natiru, which I don't experience them as gods or anything to worship. They're more like our star brothers and sisters, and they're, a cosmic energy that is grounded with archetypal earth element, archetypes. So you'd have like Isis and Hathor, which both goddesses of love, and one's more like towards the mother and fertility, and the other is a little more towards celebration and nurturance, or like sustenance and things of those nature. And they're very interchangeable. A lot of them are the same, like Sekhmet and Bastet, and even like the subdued form of Sekhmet is Hathor, which, when she drank the brew when she was on her bloodthirst, whatever. It's a long story, but I won't get into it here. But basically, it's a way for us to dance with the different energies and embrace like a higher level of consciousness, and calling forth these galactic cosmic energies to help assist us as we navigate, our reality. And so the modality I use works with Sekhem, which is the first energy, which is a creational energy, and that's associated with Sekhmet. And she's the fierce protector, but also like one of the greatest healers, because she can cut away and remove and destroy our old beliefs and thoughts and ideas about the way things are. And ultimately, that's what heals us, is we basically get out of our own way and we remember, and things get better. And that's why I call myself a healer, is it's not that I'm doing the healing, I'm just helping people remember. And then there's a
Yeah.
healing that comes forth from that. So,
Yeah. Same. And well, and I think that we can channel that energy to others where their body can naturally start healing itself as well.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you just create that field and like kind of kickstarting something. And
Yeah. So, okay. Well, so I am super curious what you understand about your one or more lives in ancient Egypt. Like, were you one of these black magic practitioners from what you understand? Or what was your
um,
role?
the black magic is just like ego kind of overtakes people. And we see that with the gurus that we're sleeping with their students and stuff. It's like they don't really intend to do that. I mean, some do maybe, but a lot of them is just temptation. And so like my lifetime in Egypt, I have a friend that he's a really amazing musician. We were there together in Egypt. And we were both like, we were healers then too. We help people remember and connect to, their spirit. And basically it was the time of forgetting. And at the time we could channel a lot of energy from the earth, from the actual like connection from the above and the below, and how the energy was being channeled through the pyramids and everything. And so we could actually channel that through with energy healing in a really powerful way. And so I was doing that to help people. And then ultimately I started getting caught up in thinking it was me, that was my power and my energy. And I did a quantum hypnosis session where I was able to see very clearly what this life was about. And it was like me standing by one of the pyramids, just going, like shooting the energy out into just out into the sky, because it felt good. And I felt all powerful with it. And what I was really doing is I was depleting the earth energy. And I didn't really realize that. I didn't even really care, I don't think, at that point. But I didn't start out wanting to do that. And there might have been other things that happened in that life too. I don't know, but it was that's what stood out. And so now in this lifetime, whenever I do ceremonies, whenever I'm working with people, or even just my own daily practices, I'm connecting to the earth and I'm giving back. And we don't really need to even draw any energy from anywhere. It's all coming from within us anyway. So when we get big groups of people together for our sound healing and breathwork adventures and stuff we do on the Big Island, it's always take an opportunity to give that energy back to bless the land, especially in Hawaii, where there's so much mana here and so much has been given, and so much transformation happens here for people, that I always try to make sure we give back too.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I actually, last year, I did a quantum healing session where I already knew I had something to do with ancient Egypt based on a session I did with my friend Tracy early last year, but I didn't know exactly my role. So I was curious, like, okay, like, let's dig deeper into this. And in the quantum healing session, I was not an Egyptian. I was actually a Syrian, and I was a genetic engineer upgrading the human body to hold more energy. And
Cool.
so it was during the time where the sound healing frequency was what was used, to levitate the stones, to build the pyramids, and to do all of that. That was not my role. I was in the spacecraft sending out huge amounts of frequency to modify the DNA and upgrade the body. And it was a whole experiment that we were doing with Earth versus another system similar to Earth, where people were on the ground teaching the humans, versus on this other planet we were doing this upgrading without physically intervening and looking to see which one was better. And what happened was, on Earth, as you just shared, people, it kind of went to their heads, ego took over, and there ended up being this power struggle. Whereas where we didn't teach people directly, it actually was much more like Avatar, like harmonious community, love, and growth, and that connection with nature instead of technology.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
when both experiences have value too, right? Like experience what it's like to fall into ego and be in
yes.
that place, and then come out of it and be like, oh, that was fun.
Yeah. And we're here to experience all of it. So anyway.
Yeah. And that's what I didn't get when I was younger, is like, just, I came here to experience this and not to fight the experience. And, or even now as I'm older, I still have a lot of the, nervous system stuff, but more and more, it's like learning to just breathe with it and be like, oh, okay, this is visiting and it's okay, rather than in the past I'd try to figure it out and do shadow work on it and, you know, rescript it or console myself. And a lot of it I'm realizing is just breathing and the presence. And I think that's what gets us out of our ego faster than anything, you know.
Beautiful.
I love you had that experience at Lifetime. There's have you read The Golden Pond or The Golden Lake?
Yes, by Holt.
Yeah, she talks about that a bit in there, about that very time period and the building of the pyramids and the channeling. I think it was the Syrians that were helping with that.
Yes. Yeah, I actually, she's one of my heroes in the channeling world, because I see her, I experience her as a very clear channel. Where I told you before we got on, you know, I grew up in the Ramtha school, which was a channeled message or, you know, energy coming through. But my experience of the woman that was the channeler was she was still very much stuck in her ego, very much so. And even though there were some amazing, like for me, true messages coming through Ramtha, there were other messages that felt very much like they were being filtered through her ego and her fear and judgment and wanting to keep people really stuck in fear, which I did not resonate with at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't feel good. You can discern it.
No, and we get to make choices about what our life is, right? We don't have to live in fear. And
yeah, absolutely.
We can timeline jump.
It happened. Yeah, it can happen. That's the thing, is it doesn't even, you don't need to do anything externally. It's all in here. And then all of a sudden the same people just act different. It's so bizarre. It's so fun to witness, you know. It's like, oh wow, I was not expecting that.
It is. And that's what over the last couple of years, that's what I've been working with my clients and my students with, of like, okay, you know, it's this deep inner healing work. And when we do that, then the external will change around us naturally.
Yeah. I've had it where I was sitting in on one of the wisdom dialogues. This woman, Hope Johnson, does something she calls wisdom dialogues, a lot heavily based on what's it called? A Course in Miracles, where she starts talking from this place of consciousness, like pure spirit, and it just irritates the hell out of the ego. But I had all my questions for her, and there was one point where she was talking and I shot out almost out of this reality, and I got scared. I was like, wait a minute, I want to come back. I'm not done yet. You know, I don't want to be out there yet. And I wonder what would happen if I went out there and how that would translate here. But there was this fear of like, oh no, I don't want to fully let go of what's holding me in place. And I see that with a lot of people, is like they'll progress and they'll grow, and they get to the point where like, oh, that's enough. I can't do anymore. Okay. And if you try to take them there too fast, it's really not helpful, and it's actually harmful. And so that's why we all have to have permission, of course, you know, to help anybody essentially. But yeah, because even I was talking about entities and demons and stuff, like that stuff all serves. It's all there. I've realized that is helping them. They actually want that. Is to remove it, they'll get sick. So yeah, it just so many perspectives I never understood when I was younger. You know,
there are. Well, we're here in third dimensional experience polarity, and we learn and grow and evolve from that polarity.
Yeah.
Ultimately, our role is to, you know, okay, see it from that higher perspective and become love and non-judgmental and all of that. But for me, I know I can see all of the things in my life that were really challenging, that I could put blame and like I was the victim and all of this, where I then I got myself out of it, and then, you know, was able to become even greater in terms of my evolution from that, the wisdom that I was able to have.
Yeah, and you can help others. Like when they come to you, it's like, oh, okay, I recognize this. And it's always a little different, but it's very similar, you know?
Yeah. So what kind of people come to you for healing? What kinds of situations are they in? Or do you primarily work with men or women or both?
Both, pretty much anybody. Seems like more often women are more receptive to this type of work, although that's changing. you know, and I wear different hats too. You know, I can go into like the therapeutic world and work with people in that world, and it's very different population and demographic. And I can do it. I don't always like it because I like to talk about really weird stuff. Because even among the weirdos, I'm really weird, you know. So, although when I moved to Hawaii, that wasn't so much the case. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of galactic beings there, and you know, they just, for me, galactic means you see from a higher perspective, and that's, you know, I don't like to throw it around, but that's kind of what I'm doing is like a galactic shaman,
Yeah.
where I see like all the different angles and feel and sense things, and you know how all the shamanism is, every culture has shamanism, and it's all has a common thread and a common purpose, and like working from that understanding, that higher perspective of things. So yeah, it's like that. I kind of lost my I went off on a tangent there, but
I was just curious. How do you work with people who come to you? What kinds of issues might they have?
what kind of views?
No, what kinds of issues?
Oh,
Like,
issues.
like why would they be like, I need to hire Jason. I need to go see him. I need his healing.
You know, it's all different. You know, a lot of it's relational, you know, which, you know, I work as I was trained as a marriage and family therapist. I didn't get licensed yet. I may do that, I may not, but a lot of it's relationships. A lot of it is, you know, past trauma, um, beliefs about who they are based on what they've been diagnosed with or told by others. And basically a lot of that, you know, just this idea that there's something wrong with them, but they know there's not, you know, and there's this thing they can't quite overcome that they want to break free of. And so I can't really say specifically because it's so varied a lot of times. It's
Okay.
usually someone that's already aware of, already has their spiritual practices, already knows who they are on a pretty high level, and yet there's certain things that they're still wanting to break free of or move beyond, kind of thing. Or they're just drawn to the Sekhem, you know, they're drawn to the energy. Like, what is that? I had a dream about, you know, so and so, and I want to learn more, kind of thing. I want to experience this, what this is.
So can you just, I guess, what that energy session might look like? Is it
Yes.
similar to Reiki or some other thing that people would be familiar with?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot like Reiki. I mean, it's energy work. I use some sound with it, some tarot cards. Um, I also incorporate guided meditation and breathing. So it's different for each person too, what comes through and which Natiru will come forward. Like I call them all in, and then I'm basically channeling their energy through me, and they tell me, you know, just show up. We'll do the rest. You just have to show up and be clear. And because in the beginning I was kind of scared to even do this, and this is why I even went and got my bachelor's degree, is because I was studying all this metaphysics stuff, and I'm like, everyone thinks I'm a weirdo. This is just too weird to talk about. You know, that's why I love you, because you're just like putting it out there, and so many people are now. It's more accepted, and so I got the degree and to be, you know, credentialed and all that stuff. But it was basically, um, yeah, just channeling their energy and getting out of the way, and you know, say allowing what comes forth to come forth. And yeah, like depending on the person's need and what frequency they're at, which Natiru comes forward. And it's fun because sometimes I see like past lives, and there may be implants or energy in the person's body, and I'll tune in with the Natiru, and they're like, okay, yeah, remove that, or just leave that, and they just guide me around. So yeah, it's all in the moment.
The etheric surgery that you do as well is with that.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
basically, it's not always maybe what it is, but I perceive like we know, a lot of people know there's implants on people, and there's energy that's held in the body, and there's like certain level of mind control and mind caps. And so I see these different energetic influences in the body, which again all have a purpose, you know, because too much too fast, it will, you know, fry somebody. They can't only go so much so fast sometimes, or at least that's what I see with some people, but it's up to their belief system. But yeah, there's certain things that I can see in a person's body that can be removed, and a lot of times it does it on its own. It's shed, like with our breathwork ceremonies. you can actually see it moving out, and you can see something kind of lingering. And then I just leave it there, until they let it go, and then I just clear it out. But if I have permission, I can actually take things out and remove stuff a lot faster. But again, it's up to what's right for them, for their highest level and frequency of healing that can be integrated with grace and ease. Because in the past, when I do energy work, it was too much for people. It was too much energy coming in, too much was removed. And so I had to set the intention, and I had to really tune in with what was present in the moment for them, what was best, rather than just as much as humanly possible, to get them elevated, because it's not enjoyable if we get too much energy.
Yeah. Well, so one is that only when I moved here to Hawaii did I feel like I could actually be my full authentic self. Back in Washington, I was still trying to be kind of normal Lisa take seriously, because I still also had a mainstream business in addition to my spiritual business. And so moving here kind of gave me permission that I can be whoever I really am, and I will attract my tribe that way. Mm-hmm. So, so that was a beautiful thing. Also, to your point of like them telling you, just trust us, we will do the work, your team. When I was right before I started doing these sessions that I'm doing now, I've got 13 different galactic groups that we're working with. So one each week. And I've only been working with my Arcturians primarily, but what they told me is, trust us, we're the gatekeepers, and you are all of these things, all of these groups. And so you will be allowing yourself to come through from these different realities. You don't have to know what it's going to look like. You just have to trust and be clear, like you said. So
unless you want to ruin it.
So I love it. So like this is the first time I have not been in control of what's being taught, actually.
Oh, how's that feel?
Last week went really well, so it feels really good, and it's like building that muscle of trust.
Yeah.
Because coming from the academic world and having to like know what your curriculum is and know like, okay, I've got my lesson plan and all of that. When I was a professor, I carried that through all of the things that I've done, since that time. And so this is my first time, again, just being like, okay, I give it up to you.
Yeah. To me, that's what faith is. That's true faith, whether it's with money or with, channeling or showing up in a speaking engagement, not having a clue what you're going to say.
Yes.
It's like, we know what the intention or the energy is, but, the words, because I used to believe I had to have everything planned out and written out in a big long speech or whatever. And I couldn't memorize. My mind just it doesn't have that kind of memory. So I was actually forced to be like, okay, I got to embrace my feminine part. I got to embrace my intuitive self that's going to channel in that moment and just trust. And it's way better because your audience, your group, whoever's listening, you can feel their energy and you know what to say. A part of us knows what to say anyway.
Yeah.
Then it's way more enjoyable for everyone.
Yes. For me, well, and also, I don't know if you're familiar with human design, but I have an undefined throat, which means that if I'm alone, I don't always have my voice. And that creates fear in terms of speaking and thinking that I'm going to have the right words. But when I get into an audience, they actually fill my throat up. So then I always then have the words that they need to hear. And so for me, something that I've had to learn to trust over the last 8 years of really working with my human design. So I'm kind of curious, do you know if your throat is undefined or not?
I'm I think it's amplifier or generator, one of the two. I don't know a whole lot about it, but what is it?
There's a generator. I'm a generator.
Generator, yeah.
But there's also a manifesting generator.
No, that's my girlfriend. So she's got the best of both worlds.
Okay, so then it's likely you do not have your throat defined, which means I would operate similarly in that, yeah, the words will come. We just have to be in that energy of that audience. And then,
yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Whole different topic, but okay. So now I, as one again, who have, I know that I am way more like non-earth than earth as an entity, as an energy, as a soul. The whole implant question, I'm super curious from your perspective, your understanding about that, because I know that the groups that I'm affiliated with, like I have had or still do have energetic implants, but it's not a bad thing
Yeah.
at all.
And yeah, I thought it was originally when I discovered that was a real thing. Like I discovered there was something called crucifixion implants. I was like, oh no, I need to get rid of those. So I, reached out to the galactic shaman I mentioned earlier, Michael Joseph. He really awesome. Not his real name. They're always constantly moving. Him and his partner, really powerful healers. So, but yeah, I wanted to get rid of those, and he wound up doing different work, and it sent me down a different path than having these. He removed implants, but he ultimately said you can do this work too. And I'm like, I don't want to. That's weird. This is weird. I'm not going to pull stuff out of people's bodies out on the street and stuff, like just like this kind of thing. But yeah, and again, that's how I perceive it. And I think there's a lot of time I spent meditating where I would feel like an axe in my head from like another lifetime of how I died. And I'd just be like, oh, okay. And I just pull it away. And I'd work with the energy there. And you see it in indigenous tribes. In my anthropology class, we saw some really old footage of one of the kids would get hurt on her arm, and the mother would just start going like this, pulling it out. And so it's innate in all of us to realize that things are energy, and we can remove and pull them out when we need to, when we come to that time of realization. And so it's the same with the implants and even entities too. It's just, when you're ready, let it go. And you don't really even need to know a whole lot about it other than, and a lot of it's a mental construct too. Like a lot of it's just the belief we hold onto that's creating a lot of the frequency for things to get stuck or implanted or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I like your explanation of that.
It doesn't, that's my perspective on it. Other people would have their views. In Lisa's community, we talked a lot about that and about energetic structures on the planet and how you can harness and direct energy for your own personal will. And a lot of that's been done on this planet. And more recently, that's all crumbling and falling apart. And even though it may look worse on the surface, a lot of those people that were benefiting from others' energy and the nature's energy are not able to draw on it like they could. And because we all have to, we're all ascending out of this. And some people will choose something else and go to timelines where that will still exist. But the vast majority of this planet, I feel too, is ascending. And yeah, so it's an exciting time.
It is. And you are like me, where I was definitely called to this island. There was no reason why I needed to leave Washington. Like I had a nice house, I had a cushy life, really cushy. But in the middle of COVID, it just came very strongly. And within 6 months of deciding, we moved here and had bought a house. And I know that was more of my pull, not my husband's pull. But for you, I'm curious how you were drawn here to the island. Because she either pulls you in or she spits you out, right?
Yeah, I didn't really want to come here because I felt like I wasn't really wanted here. Like, Hawaii is its own kingdom, and it was taken over. And the Hawaiians embrace visitors and people that come live here, but there's, it is their kingdom, and so I didn't want to impose on that. And yet, coming here, I was able to learn and grow, and I'd learn about aloha and learn to change how I think and view the world. And I came here ultimately because my mom and stepdad live here, and they have a small business. So I came to work for them and finish my degree. And I just, I fell in love with the ocean. I was kind of afraid of water and all that. Now I'm totally into it and not as scared of sharks and all that stuff. And the weather's great, and the people, it's just the people here are phenomenal. And so I wound up staying, but yeah, I never really intended to come here, but I was drawn here. And when I came to the islands, I was meditating a lot, all through my Arizona time. I was always meditating constantly. I was a limo driver for a while, well, chauffeured transportation, like the Escalades and stuff. I just sit for hours and meditate, and I get all these kind of downloads and really amazing experiences. And I got really sensitive to energy. And so when I came to Hawaii, I'd go into nature, I'd meditate, and I'd get a lot of like, who are you? What are you doing here? And kind of like some intense, there's spirits everywhere and ancestral spirits.
Yeah.
But I connected with Pele, and like Pele saw me beyond that. She's like a cosmic being that really sees like a lot of our lifetimes. So she saw beyond my skin and everything, like who I am in these other lifetimes. And I just felt really that warm embrace from her. And I felt like she's been protecting me ever since. And like she saw what I came here to do, and whatever that is, I don't know, but I've always tried to give more than I take. And yeah, it's been a blessing. I don't know how long I'll be here, but I'm here now. Actually, I'm in Washington State right now visiting family, but I still live in Hawaii. But it's not easy. You gotta kind of hustle. You gotta work various jobs. It's hard to find places to live, and it's more you're off grid a lot of times, or you catching your own rainwater, and it'll make you appreciate life and nature even more. And so, yeah.
Well, and your side is definitely more of that.
Oh yeah, and Puna especially.
Yeah. My good friend Lee lives over in Puna. You might even know him.
Oh, I know Lee. Yeah, Lee's great. I watched the interview you did with him. Okay. That guy's awesome, man. I had no idea that he had that connection until I saw your interview.
Well, he didn't either until we did the regression.
Yeah.
No, it's quite it's been a fascinating process, because one of the reasons why I do this show, number one, it's to really expand awareness to the public who may not know about all these different things that exist. So it's spreading information, awareness. Someone's going to resonate with someone more than the other, just based on what they need. But it's a personal thing of like, I'm building my tribe. Like we need to all know each other and work together and really like come from this true place of healing and love. And so I love, bringing people like you and Leon that are really part of that mission. Yeah.
And I still have my hangups and my thoughts that come in and interrupt that flow. Like, the love, especially, to really open and connect to people, has always been scary to me, because, it's just easier to push everything away as someone that feels things, to just be like, okay, that's enough, get away. And so more and more, it's like going to ecstatic dance. That's something I never would have done when I was in my 20s. You go and you start dancing all like relaxed and fluid, and I'm like, what? But now I do all that weird stuff, so it's fun.
At some point, I have to come over to your side and do that with you or something with you guys.
Yeah. It's a great community. There's so much going on here. There's so many like people just honing their craft, musicians and healers and yoga instructors, and you name it, it's all here. And ayahuasca journeys, psilocybins, whatever. Then there's like, people fighting, and there's just all kinds of stuff. It's amazing. Like with the youth I used to work with, they were all about scrapping and fighting each other. And it wasn't always like, just for violence. It was just like that's just what they like to do, and kind of where I grew up is the same as, there's guys that like to fight, and, and anyway, that's another topic.
Well, so where do you see yourself going from here? If you can imagine yourself like in 5 years, what is the big dream that you have?
Yeah, I always saw myself like traveling around more, and doing more of like the spirit guidance mentorships I do, where I work with people individually for longer periods of time, or for like a couple months,
Mhm.
and probably doing more of these sound healing breathwork ceremonies where we just people show up and they don't know what to expect, and they drop into their hearts and they breathe deeply and they get to this place of presence and an altered state of consciousness sometimes, and with all the music and the sounds they leave changed like forever, like a connect, because they connect to that what I call spirit, that presence, that essence, the connection to all things. And from that place everything changes, and the more you connect to that, the more that's really all we need in life. I realize more and more is come into that place of the connection with spirit, and then, oh, this is what's happening now, rather than, oh, I got to plan this and that. And but I'd like a more stable like home and stuff would be great, like the place that I own and can live at. It's a home base rather than constantly moving every 9 months. But that might be like the shaman thing in me or something, because
Well,
my teacher did that all the time.
if you see yourself traveling, maybe you're not meant to. Maybe you're meant to be a nomad.
Must be, yeah. I think I can change that. I think we can still change even that too.
You can, but yeah, I mean, everything is possible.
Well, it's hard because like this is always one of the challenges for that path, where it's like what is in the flow, and then what is it I prefer, and where's like the middle ground with that. We have our preferences and our desires, and then there's like, well, the universe is calling me this way, and it's not always like really very clear, at least not for me. Sometimes it is. It's like, oh yeah, go this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you the last 8 years, I've had to be very much in flow and just go with it. And when I have gotten the information of like, okay, you need to leave your ex-husband, you need to start your spiritual business, you need to move to Hawaii. I'm like, okay. And I had no clue where it was going to lead me, but now I do know like where I am and what I'm doing with the galactic ambassadorship and channeling is ultimately what I am supposed to be doing. That is what I came to do. It just took 50 years for me to figure it out or allow it because I wanted to fit in so much.
Yeah.
Like growing up, I just wanted to fit in and be normal because I wasn't from a normal family. But now I embrace not being normal. I actually very much appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, everybody's family is weird. Some more than others, but that's the blessing, right?
Yeah, I guess from whatever perspective. Because I look at some families, I'm like, I'm so glad I did not choose that kind of family or lifestyle. So
yeah, I hear what you're saying too. It's like you had a very different kind of childhood with going to a school based on channeled material, and which, yeah, I mean, obviously you chose that for a reason.
I did. And I do know why now, because I guess I didn't want to have to wait until I was an adult to know like that we're more than just this human life.
Sad.
We're
Believe
everything.
that. I know. I remember when I was young and I'd lay in bed and I'd get caught up in my thinking, my ego and stuff. And I would think about death and like how finite that was. And in an intellectual place, it's terrifying. So I get why people would be afraid of death. But I've experienced like, past lives and also what happens in between life. And the best way I can describe it to people is like, you're looking all over for your glasses. You can't find your glasses. And then you die and you're like, oh, they're on my head. Like the whole time I was like, oh, it was right there the whole time. And there's a lot of my lives I saw like how beautiful I was or how smart I was or like how much I had in front of me, but I didn't really appreciate it because I couldn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, and we're here. We're here to experience.
Yep.
Well, are there any parting words of wisdom that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I said a lot already. I don't know, I'm not sure what else I would say other than like the power of the breath. Like that breathing is the closest thing to who we truly are than anything in our head, any experience we've ever had. That the actual breathing in and out, and even feeling like if there's a little tension there and just keep going with that breath, like that's closer to who we really are. And then the more we focus on that, it brings us into presence, and the more it's like, oh, okay, I know now rather than I think I know, and all that stuff. So yeah, the power of the breath.
Beautiful. And how can people find you? What's your
So you
website? Or how can people find you? What's your website, or what social media outlets are you on?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I got a YouTube channel. If you just put in Jason Donaldson Healer, you'll be able to find me, and also jasondonaldsonhealer.com. You can I have my website and my various offerings, and I have a free tool on there as well. It's called the 5-minute energy shift, which is gets into breathing and different ways we can focus our consciousness to help shift our energy when we've fallen into some stuff we're trying to get out of. And a lot of it again is the breath of just be breathing and becoming present and embracing the emotions. In fact, there's a gentleman I'm working with right now, my mentor, that his whole thing is just that breath and allowing the emotion to come and be with the emotion as you breathe, and you breathe that into presence, and everything changes, and that energy is now available to like create other things, rather than it always showing, rather than the universe presenting things for the opportunity to feel the emotion that's always there. Yeah, it's such a shift, like, oh yeah, that thing happened so I can feel the emotion that I'm carrying around all the time that I'm distracting myself from. And so once we do that, then everything opens, and like snowboarding right now, I wanted to go snowboarding. I'm like, how am I going to accomplish that? How's that going to happen? And it's like, oh yeah, I got air miles. Oh yeah, I can do this. It comes together. So that's what I would say, the power of the breath.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone grab that tool free on Jason's website, jasondonaldsonhealer.com. And Jason, I just want to thank you so much for being on with me. It is such a pleasure to actually have our first conversation, and I look forward to meeting you in person one day. And perhaps, who knows where our dragons and our galactics will take us.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure.
So,
I really appreciate being on your show, and thank you so much for all you're doing.
yeah, you're welcome. And thank you to everyone watching or listening, and I'll see you next time. Aloha.
Aloha.